Sierra and Derek stood in the airport terminal, waiting to board their flight. Sierra, wearing a tailored business suit, exuded confidence. Derek, with a quiet and composed demeanor, stood beside her, offering a reassuring smile. This was a routine trip for the couple, one they'd made countless times before. But this time, something felt different. They approached the gate, where the gate agent handed them their boarding passes, smiling. "First-class seats, both of you," she said cheerfully. Sierra returned the smile, eager to relax after a busy week. They moved toward the entryway to the first-class cabin, but as they approached, a uniformed pilot stepped forward. "Excuse me, ma'am," the pilot said, his voice calm but authoritative. "I need to speak with you about your seating assignment." Sierra raised an eyebrow, confused. "Is there an issue with my ticket?" she asked, her voice steady. The pilot, a tall man with a stern expression, looked at the boarding pass and then at Sierra. "It seems there's a mistake in the system. You're not cleared for first class," Derek frowned, stepping forward. "But we paid for those seats," he said, his voice firm. "Our tickets were confirmed. Are you sure this is a mistake?" The pilot raised a hand, a gesture that silenced Derek. "I'm sorry, sir. This is a direct order. Please step aside." Sierra's stomach twisted with disbelief. "So you're saying I can't board because of a technical issue?" Her voice was calm, but edged with rising frustration. "I've flown with this airline more times than I can count, and now you're telling me I can't sit in the seat I paid for. Why is that?" The pilot's face remained neutral as he glanced at her, offering no sign of empathy. "It's a system error. Please move aside. We don't have time to argue about this." The words felt wrong. Something about this didn't add up. Sierra felt her anger rising. She had worked hard for everything she had. This wasn't just about a mistake. This felt personal. "Are you really going to stand there and tell me I don't belong in this seat?" she asked, her tone becoming more forceful. "Who decides that? You? The system?" The pilot's expression didn't change. He offered no apology, just a firm refusal. "I've already explained the situation. Please return to the gate." Sierra froze, the disbelief now turning into something colder. She had never experienced anything like this before. Her professional composure was crumbling, replaced by a deep, unsettling anger. Derek placed a gentle hand on her shoulder, his voice quiet, but filled with concern. "Let's just go back and sort this out." But Sierra didn't move. "No," she said, her voice low but determined. "I'm not just going to walk away from this. Not now." The pilot turned, dismissing her completely. "I'm sorry, Mom. Please step aside." Sierra stood still, her heart pounding. This wasn't just about a mistake. It was something more. As she turned away, she realized what had just happened. The pilot's refusal wasn't just an inconvenience. It was a statement, a message she wasn't ready to receive, but one she couldn't ignore. "Let's just figure this out," Derek said again, trying to calm her. But Sierra was already too far gone, her frustration boiling over. She wasn't about to let this go. The gate agent, who had been standing by, stepped forward with a nervous glance. "Please, ma'am, let's go back to the counter and resolve this." Sierra took a deep breath, her mind racing. She didn't know how to fight this yet, but she knew one thing for sure. She wasn't going to let it slide. Not now. Not ever. Sierra sat on the edge of the hotel bed, her phone in hand. She stared at the screen, but her thoughts were miles away. Derek had stepped out for a moment, leaving her alone in the room with the stillness that always seemed to settle when things were left unsaid. The past few days had been a whirlwind of meetings, presentations, and conference calls, but there was a different tension now, one that didn't have an easy answer. She shifted her gaze to the window, watching the distant city lights blink in the night sky. Sierra had always been the go-getter, the one who worked twice as hard to prove her worth in spaces where her blackness was often ignored or diminished. She'd earned every accolade, every title she'd received, and yet it never felt like enough. not in the eyes of those who made snap judgments based on the color of her skin. It had been a struggle her entire life, a fight against the barriers that seemed designed to keep her in her place. The sound of the door opening broke her from her reverie. Derek entered the room, his expression light, a half smile on his face. He set down a small bag of snacks he'd picked up on his way back. "Hey, you okay?" he asked softly, his voice warm but concerned. Sierra didn't look at him immediately. She didn't want to talk about what had happened at the airport, not yet. She wasn't sure she even wanted to talk about it at all. "I'm fine," she said, her tone flat. Derek sat next to her on the bed, the warmth of his presence offering some comfort, but also an unspoken reminder of the divide that sometimes separated them. He wasn't entirely ignorant of the struggles she faced. He had listened to her rants, her frustrations over the years, but he couldn't truly understand. He had grown up with a certain privilege, a kind of freedom Sierra had never known. He leaned back against the headboard, his fingers absent-mindedly tracing the edge of the snack bag. "You know you can talk to me, right? Whatever happened back there, I'm on your side." Sierra finally looked at him, her eyes searching his face for any sign of true understanding. Derek meant well, but sometimes his attempts to console her felt like a gentle dismissal of the reality she lived every day. His privilege wasn't something he could easily shake off, no matter how hard he tried. "I know you're on my side," she replied, her voice tinged with a bitterness she couldn't hide. "But sometimes I feel like you don't really get it." Derek paused, sensing the depth of her frustration. He wasn't blind to her struggles. They had talked about this before, countless times. But it wasn't the same as living it. He had never been the target of prejudice or discrimination simply for existing in the world. His family's wealth and history were privileges he had never had to question until recently, and even then, the full weight of what that meant hadn't sunk in. "I'm trying to understand," he said, his voice earnest but laced with the uncertainty that always followed these conversations. "I know I can't fully understand what it's like, but that doesn't mean I don't see how hard you work, or how unfair it is. You deserve so much more than what you get, and I hate that you have to deal with it every day." Sierra let out a deep breath, running her fingers through her hair. Derek's words were comforting, but they felt like a temporary fix to a much deeper wound. "It's not just about the work, Derek," she said, her voice cracking for the first time. "It's about how people see me, how they assume I'm not capable because of the color of my skin, how I always have to prove myself over and over again." She looked down at her hands, clenching them into fists before slowly releasing them. "It's exhausting, and I know you don't understand what that feels like. You don't have to. But I can't keep pretending like it doesn't matter, like it's not constantly weighing me down." Derek's face softened. He reached out, gently taking her hand in his. "I can't imagine how hard that must be," he said quietly. "But I want to try. I want to be here for you, and I want to learn how to do better. I don't want you to feel like you're alone in this." Sierra looked at him, her eyes searching, his face for sincerity. She had seen his attempts before, and part of her appreciated them, even if they didn't always hit the mark. But the truth was, Derek couldn't undo the weight she carried every day. He couldn't change the systems that had been built to hold her back, no matter how hard he tried. "I know you're trying," she said softly, squeezing his hand. "And I appreciate that, but it's not enough sometimes." Derek nodded, his eyes filled with regret. "I get it," he said quietly. "I'm sorry you have to carry all of this. I wish I could do more." Sierra sighed, leaning back against the headboard. Maybe just listening is enough for now. For a moment, there was silence between them, a quiet understanding settling in the space. Derek sat beside her, still holding her hand, but neither of them needed to speak. Sierra knew that the road ahead would be difficult, but she also knew she didn't have to face it alone. Derek might not fully understand what it was like to walk in her shoes, but he was trying, and for now, that was enough. Sierra stood at the entrance to the first-class cabin, her body tense, her mind racing. The pilot had just dismissed her, his words like a slap to the face. "It's a system error," he'd said, his tone final and impersonal. But Sierra couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more beneath his words, something deeper at play. Derek stood beside her, looking between the pilot and Sierra, his brow furrowed, unsure of what to say, caught between the desire to smooth things over and the discomfort he felt at seeing his wife so openly insulted. "Sierra, let's just calm down," he said quietly, reaching for her hand. But Sierra jerked, her hand away, her eyes narrowed in frustration. "Calm down," she repeated, her voice rising. "You want me to calm down when I've been told I can't sit in a seat I've paid for? When I've been told my status doesn't matter? This is the kind of crap I deal with every damn day." Derek exhaled sharply, his gaze shifting from Sierra to the pilot. He didn't want to escalate things further, but he could feel the tension in the air. "Maybe we should just go back to the gate and—" "No," Sierra cut him off, her tone hard. "I'm not going back to the gate. Not until I know why this is happening." The pilot's face remained stoic. "Ma'am, I've already explained the situation. If you'll just—" "Explain it again," Sierra demanded, stepping closer. "Because I don't believe you, and I want to know why you're treating me like I don't belong here. I don't care about the system error. I care about the way you're looking at me, the way you're speaking to me. You don't even know me. You don't know who I am or what I've had to do to get here. So why am I being treated like this?" The pilot shifted on his feet, clearly uncomfortable with the confrontation. "I assure you, ma'am, this is just a mistake. There's no reason for you to feel this way." But Sierra wasn't buying it. The words stung, but it wasn't just the words that bothered her. It was the way they were spoken. Dismissive, cold, like she didn't belong, like she didn't deserve the same treatment as anyone else. "Sierra, let's just—" Derek started, but his voice trailed off as Sierra raised a hand to silence him. "Don't tell me to just let it go," she snapped. "You have no idea what it's like to walk through this world and be told you're not good enough just because of how you look. You don't know what it's like to fight for a place at the table every single day." Derek's face softened, but there was guilt in his eyes. He wanted to help, wanted to make it better, but he didn't know how. This wasn't something he could fix by offering words of comfort. He was part of the system that Sierra had spent her life battling. He had privileges she couldn't even begin to understand, and no matter how much he tried to be there for her, it never felt like enough. The pilot, sensing the rising tension, shifted uncomfortably, glancing at the surrounding passengers who were beginning to take notice of the confrontation. "Ma'am, please," he said again, his tone now edged with impatience. "I really don't want to escalate this further. If you could just return to the gate, we can—" "Escalate it?" Sierra's voice shook with rage now. "You think this is about a simple misunderstanding? This is about every single time I've had to fight to be seen as equal, to be treated like a human being. And you standing there, dismissing me like this. It's not just a mistake. It's not just an error. It's personal." Derek stepped forward, trying to put a hand on her arm, but she pulled away, her eyes blazing. "Sierra," he said softly, but she ignored him. "Why are you treating me this way?" she asked the pilot, her voice low but piercing. "Is this because I'm black? Because I've been working my entire life to get here, and yet people still find a reason to make me feel like I'm not worthy?" There was a pause. The pilot hesitated, then sighed heavily, his gaze dropping to the floor. "You don't understand," he muttered, almost to himself. "It's not that simple." Sierra's frustration reached a boiling point. "Then make it simple. Tell me what's really going on. What is this really about?" The pilot glanced over at Derek, then back to Sierra. His voice softened, a hint of something unfamiliar creeping in. "It's about your husband's family," he said quietly. Sierra blinked, her mind racing. "What does Derek's family have to do with anything?" The pilot's face twisted in discomfort. "I knew your husband's grandfather, and he wasn't exactly a friend of mine. There's history there. Things he did. Things he said. Derek's face turned pale. What? What are you talking about? Sierra turned to Derek, her confusion and anger mounting. What is he saying, Derek? What is this? About your family? Derek's mind raced as he tried to make sense of the pilot's words. He had never heard his grandfather's name mentioned in such a context. I don't... The pilot's expression hardened. Your grandfather's influence still runs deep in the company he built. His legacy. The way he treated people like they were beneath him. It's a history that still affects the way people like me are seen. Sierra's jaw clenched. Derek was frozen, the weight of his family's legacy settling heavily on his shoulders. This wasn't just about her. It was about everything. Every interaction, every assumption, every time his family's history loomed over their lives. Sierra's voice was quiet, but full of the weight of understanding. So, it's not just about me being in first class. It's about everything that came before me, everything that's been done to keep people like me out. Derek's heart sank, and for the first time, he realized how deeply connected the past was to the present. How much the privilege he had never fully questioned, had shaped the way Sierra had to live her life. The pilot didn't say anything more. His silence was heavy, an acknowledgement of the truth they had all just uncovered. The tension in the air was palpable, thick with unspoken words. But Sierra wasn't ready to let it end there. Not yet. We're not done, she said, turning toward Derek. Not by a long shot. Sierra's patience had worn thin. The conversation with the pilot had spiraled, and now they stood on the edge of a precipice. She was no longer holding back. Her anger, frustration, and confusion all exploded in one raw, unwavering moment. I want answers. Now. Sierra's voice was low, cutting through the tension like a knife. She stepped closer to the pilot, her presence commanding. Why is it that you're treating me like I don't belong here? Like I'm less than the others? The pilot stood his ground, but there was a flicker of something in his eyes. Guilt? Unease? Sierra wasn't sure, but she wasn't about to let him off the hook. This isn't just about my seat, she pressed. It's about who I am, what I represent, and how you've decided I don't deserve what I've earned. So tell me, what is it really about? Derek stood beside her, his fists clenched, unsure whether to speak or stay silent. He had watched her fight for so long, but this moment, this confrontation, was unlike anything he had ever seen. It was raw, unfiltered, and impossible to ignore. Sierra. Derek's voice trembled as he reached out to touch her arm, but she shrugged it off, her eyes never leaving the pilot. This isn't the way. No, Derek, this is exactly the way. She spun to face him, her eyes blazing with a mix of anger and hurt. You want to know why I'm angry? It's because I've spent my life fighting for space in places I wasn't supposed to be. And now, when I finally make it, when I'm finally where I belong, someone like him, she pointed to the pilot, decides I don't deserve it. Why? Because of the color of my skin. I've been fighting this fight since I was a child, Derek, and it never stops. Derek's face was a mixture of pain and guilt. He had known this reality, but hearing Sierra's words, seeing her like this, it was something he had never fully comprehended. He had always been the one on the outside of this struggle, trying to offer support, but now he was forced to confront the reality of the situation. I didn't know, he said quietly, almost to himself. I didn't know it was this deep. Sierra's gaze softened just a fraction, but her voice remained firm. It's deep because people like him, she pointed to the pilot, are part of the reason this world is the way it is. They think their power is untouchable, that they can decide who gets to sit at the table. The pilot shifted uncomfortably. He opened his mouth to speak, but hesitated, his eyes flickering to Derek, then back to Sierra. You don't understand, he finally muttered, his voice strained. It's not just about you, it's about the legacy. Sierra's eyebrows shot up. The legacy? What legacy? The pilot hesitated again before speaking, the words coming out slowly, like a confession he had buried deep within himself for far too long. Derek's grandfather. He was a powerful man. His influence reached farther than you might think. I worked for him, and I saw how he treated people like you, like they were nothing. Your husband's family was part of the system that kept people like you out of spaces like this. I'm not just doing this out of prejudice. I'm doing it out of history, the history your family's power created. Sierra stood frozen, her body taut, her heart racing. She turned slowly to Derek, the full weight of the pilot's words sinking in. What is he talking about, Derek? Derek's face went pale. He didn't need to hear more to understand what was being said. The history that had been buried, the privilege that had been handed down to him without his choosing, was now standing in front of him, demanding to be acknowledged. He could feel the truth closing in on him, suffocating him. He looked at Sierra, his expression torn. I didn't know, Derek said, his voice hoarse. I didn't know the extent of what my grandfather did. I knew he was influential, but I never thought it would affect you. I never thought it would reach this far. Sierra shook her head, her emotions flaring. How could you not know? How could you not see it? It's not just about your family's legacy. It's about what it means for me to be here, right now, fighting to be treated like I'm human. This isn't just about a seat on a plane, Derek. This is about the system that's been set up to keep people like me from ever being equal. Derek's jaw tightened as he looked at her, a mix of shame and determination filling his eyes. I don't know how to make it right, Sierra, but I will. I will stand by you. I will fight with you. I can't change the past, but I can change the future. Sierra's anger faltered for a moment, her eyes softening as she looked at him. And how do we change it, Derek? How do we change something so deeply embedded? The pilot, sensing the shift in the conversation, took a step back, his voice quieter now. I didn't want this to happen, but it's too late. The damage has been done. Sierra turned her attention back to him, her voice firm once more. The damage is only done if we let it stay. If we continue to ignore it, it will never change. But we can't keep running from it. Derek took a deep breath, his shoulders slumping as he fully absorbed the weight of Sierra's words. Then let's not run anymore. Let's face it together. The pilot didn't say anything more, his silence heavy with the unspoken truths that had finally come to light. As Sierra and Derek stood side by side, they both knew the journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but it would be theirs to take. Together, Sierra and Derek sat quietly in the waiting area, the din of the airport, bustling around them. The flight they had been waiting for had taken off, but the sense of resolution was elusive. The pilot had apologized, and though the first-class seating issue had been settled, the tension in the air lingered like a storm waiting to break. Sierra's gaze was distant, her mind far away from the present moment. Derek broke the silence first, his voice soft but filled with regret. I never thought it would be like this, that it would come to this point. Sierra looked at him, her eyes tired but resolute. Neither did I, but we're here now, and we have to deal with what's come up. Derek swallowed hard, struggling to find the right words. I don't know how to fix this, how to make it right. I can't change the past, Sierra. Sierra's lips pressed into a thin line, the weight of her words pressing down on her. No one can, but that doesn't mean we just ignore it. We can't pretend it didn't happen. We can't pretend that it doesn't still affect us, even now. Derek nodded slowly, the realization of what Sierra had said sinking in. I know, but what does this mean for us? What do we do now? Sierra looked away, staring at the empty first-class seats through the glass. The barriers that remained, the ones they couldn't see or touch, still felt as real as ever. I don't know, she said quietly, but I think we have to start by understanding each other better, and by really looking at how much of this is still in our lives, how much of it is still shaping everything we do. Derek reached for her hand, his touch tentative. I'm willing to try. I want to understand. I'm afraid that no matter how much I try, it won't be enough. Sierra turned to face him, her eyes softer now. I don't need you to fix it. I need you to stand with me, to see it with me, the reality of it, the way it shapes everything. And that's not easy. It's not comfortable. There was a long pause. Derek's expression was torn, the weight of his family's legacy still heavy on his mind. He had always been aware of privilege, but now it felt like something far more insidious, something that had been embedded in his life without his permission, but that he had never fully confronted. How do we move forward then? He asked, his voice full of uncertainty. How do we navigate all of this? Sierra's gaze softened, though her resolve remained firm. One step at a time. We don't have to have all the answers, but we do have to be willing to walk through this together. We have to acknowledge the past and then decide what we're going to do with it. Derek nodded, the weight in his chest easing just a little. I can do that. I can be there for you, Sierra, I promise. Sierra gave a small, weary smile, but it was laced with something deeper, something unspoken. They were far from done. The journey ahead would be complicated, painful even, but it was theirs to take, and for the first time in a long while, they were on the same path, together. Sierra and Derek sat on a bench in the quiet corner of the terminal, the chaos of the airport now distant. The events of the day had left them both drained, their emotions raw, but the air between them felt different, heavier, yet somehow more connected. Sierra broke the silence first, her voice soft but steady. It's not just about today, Derek. It never is. It's everything that came before, everything we've been living with for so long. Derek nodded, his eyes fixed on the floor in front of him. I know. I've been blind to it, to how much I've been sheltered from the reality you've lived with every day. And I can't undo that. I can't fix all the hurt. Sierra turned to face him, her expression a mixture of pain and resolve. No, you can't fix it. But you can learn. We can learn. We can work together, even if it's not easy. And that's what matters. That's how we move forward. Derek's voice trembled slightly. I don't know where to begin, but I'll do whatever it takes. I've got to be better. For you, for us. Sierra looked at him, searching his face for the sincerity she had come to need. She could see the effort, the genuine remorse. It's not going to be perfect. It won't ever be perfect. But that's what we have to face. Together. There was a pause, the weight of their words settling in the space between them. Derek's hand reached out tentatively, finding hers, and for a moment, there was a quiet connection that felt like the beginning of something new. I'm sorry for what I didn't see, Derek said, his grip tightening slightly. But I see it now. I see what it's been like for you, and I'll fight with you, every step of the way. Sierra nodded, a small but genuine smile breaking through the tension. We don't have to have all the answers. I just need you with me. I need us to face what's ahead, even when it's hard. She leaned her head against his shoulder, feeling the quiet comfort of his presence. The road ahead would be long. The world would still carry the weight of inequality, the system still rigged to favor some over others. But in this moment, Sierra felt a spark of hope. Hope that things could be different, if only they kept trying. Their silence stretched on, not uncomfortable, but full of the understanding that this was just the beginning. They were far from solving the world's problems, but they had taken a step forward together, and that was enough for now.